Here are two people using the exact same AI on the exact same day. The first types "write about dogs" and gets back a bland, wandering paragraph that reads like an encyclopedia entry nobody asked for. The second person types a few careful sentences and gets back something sharp, useful, and perfectly on target. Same model, same moment, wildly different results. The difference wasn't the AI, it was the asking, and that is the entire idea behind prompt engineering. It is, quite simply, the cheapest superpower in all of AI. You don't need a smarter model. You don't need to write a single line of code. You don't need to spend a cent. You just need to learn how to ask well. And here's the best part. This is a learnable skill, not a secret art. There are a handful of concrete techniques, and once you see them, you can't unsee them. You'll start writing better prompts immediately today for whatever you use AI for. By the end of this video, you'll have all of them. And to really understand why these techniques work, it helps to remember one thing about how these models operate. If you've seen my video on how LLMs work, this will click instantly. A model doesn't understand your request the way a person does. It simply predicts the next word based on the text you give it, which means your prompt isn't a command, it's the setup, it's the running start, and a better setup produces a better finish. So let's learn how to give it that running start, how to talk to AI, prompt engineering from the ground up. Part 1. What a prompt actually is. Before any technique, you need the right mental model because most people start with the wrong one. They treat the AI like a search engine. Type a few keywords, expect the system to figure out what they really meant. That instinct will hold you back more than anything else. A prompt is not a search query. The AI is not Google. When you search, a system tries to guess your intent and match it to existing pages. When you prompt, you are handing the model the entire starting context, the exact text it will build its answer on top of, one word at a time. There's no separate step where it divines what you truly wanted. Your words are all it has. So here's the single most important sentence in this whole video. The model cannot read your mind, it can only read your prompt. Everything you leave out, every detail you assume is obvious, it simply does not have. If you don't say who the answer is for, it doesn't know. If you don't say how long, it guesses. Being a good prompter is really just the skill of setting up that context clearly and completely, so the model has everything it needs. And that's what we're going to build in this video, the anatomy of a great prompt. We'll start with a weak one-line request and add one ingredient at a time. A role, a clear task, context, examples, a format, and room to think. Watch how, with each layer, a vague prompt turns into a precise instrument. Let's start with the biggest lever of all. Part 2, be specific. If you remember only one thing from this entire video, make it this one. Specificity is the single biggest lever you have. The oldest rule in computing applies perfectly here. Vague in, vague out. Let's watch it happen. Start with the classic lazy prompt, write about dogs. What can the model possibly do with that? It doesn't know who it's for, how long it should be, what angle to take, or what you actually care about, so it does the only thing it can. It produces the most average, middle-of-the-road response imaginable. Bland, because you gave it nothing to aim at. Now let's sharpen it. Write a 150-word introduction for first-time golden retriever owners in a warm and encouraging tone, focused on what to expect from the breed's temperament. Suddenly the model has targets, a length, an audience, a tone, a focus. And the answer transforms from a generic essay into something that feels genuinely written for a specific person. Read the two answers side by side and the gap is obvious. The lazy version opens with, "Dogs are one of the most popular pets in the world," a sentence that could start a school essay written by anyone about nothing in particular. The specific version opens with something a nervous new owner actually needs to hear, about the big, goofy temperament they are about to live with. Same model, same few seconds of work. One is filler, the other connects, and that entire leap came from about 20 extra words of instruction. Here's the principle underneath it. Every choice you don't make, the model makes for you, and it makes it by averaging over everything it has ever read. Leave the length unspecified, you get an average length. Leave the tone open, you get a generic tone. Specificity is simply you taking back those choices, instead of leaving them to chance. Every detail you add is a decision. The model no longer has to guess. So the foundation of our prompt is a clear, specific task. This one habit alone will improve your results more than every other technique combined, but we can layer much more on top. Let's give the model a point of view. Part 3. Give it a role. This is a small trick with a surprisingly large effect. Before you give the task, tell the model who it should be. You are an experienced pediatric nurse. You are a patient math tutor. You are a senior software engineer reviewing a colleague's code. Why does a single sentence like that change so much? Think back to how the model works. It has read an enormous range of human writing, from academic papers to casual chats to expert manuals. When you assign a role, you steer it toward a whole region of that training. The vocabulary an expert would use, the tone they'd take, the things they would think to mention, and the things they'd know to avoid. You're not giving it new knowledge, you're focusing the knowledge it already has. And be specific with the role itself, the same way you are with the task. Act as an expert is weak because expert could mean almost anything. Act as a pediatric dietitian who specializes in picky eaters is strong because it points at a precise, narrow slice of knowledge. The sharper the role, the more focused the voice you get back. A vague role just gives you a vague expert. Take one question: how should I handle a disagreement with my boss? Ask it as a career coach and you get warm, practical, encouraging advice. Ask the very same question as an employment lawyer and you get careful, risk-aware guidance about documentation and rights. Same question. Two different experts, two genuinely different answers, because you pointed the model at two different parts of what it knows. So now our prompt has a role sitting on top of the specific task. The model knows who it's being and what it's doing. Next, we give it something it can't possibly know on its own: the details of your actual situation. Part 4. Give it context. Remember our core truth. The model can only read your prompt. It has never met you. It doesn't know your project, your history, your constraints, or your goals unless you tell it, so tell it. This is the technique of pasting in the background. Instead of asking, write a reply to this email, you give it the actual email, the reply you're responding to, and a line about the outcome you want. Instead of asking for marketing ideas, you describe your product, your customer, your budget, and what you've already tried. The more relevant background you provide, the less the model has to invent, and the more the answer fits your real situation, instead of a generic one. Here's a simple test you can run before you ever hit enter. Ask yourself, could a competent stranger do this task well, using only the words I've written? If the answer is no, if they'd have to come and ask you 3 questions first, then those 3 answers are exactly the context your prompt is missing. Add them in and watch the model stop guessing. And if this sounds familiar, it should. In my video on RAG, we saw how AI systems automatically fetch relevant documents and drop them into the prompt before the model answers. Context engineering, as it's sometimes called, is really just that same idea. Giving the model the right information up front. When you paste in your background by hand, you are doing, manually, exactly what those systems do automatically. It's the same move, and it's one of the most powerful things you can do. So context now joins the prompt, the role, the task, and the specific details of your world. The model is no longer guessing about your situation, it's working from it. But some things are far easier to show than to describe, so let's show it. Part 5. Show examples. This is the technique that feels almost like magic the first time it works. Sometimes the fastest way to tell a model what you want is not to describe it at all, it's to show it a few examples. There's even a name for this. Asking with no examples is called zero shot. You just make your request and hope. Giving one example is one shot, and giving a handful is few shot. And the jump from 0 to a few examples can be dramatic, especially for anything with a specific pattern, format, or style. Say you want to sort customer feedback into positive or negative. Instead of explaining your rules in detail, you just show a couple. The food was cold, negative. Staff were so friendly, positive. Then you give it the next comment and let it continue the pattern. The model is a pattern completion engine at heart, so a few clear examples often work better than a paragraph of instructions. You're not telling it the rule, you're letting it infer the rule from what you've shown. A couple of quick tips on examples. 2 or 3 is usually plenty. You rarely need 10, but keep them consistent because the model copies the pattern you show it, flaws and all. If your examples are sloppy or contradict each other, the output will be 2. And make sure they cover the tricky cases you actually care about, not just the easy ones. Your examples are a tiny training set written on the spot, so choose them with care. Examples are your best tool whenever a task is easier to demonstrate than to explain. A specific writing style, an exact output format, a tricky judgment call with fuzzy edges. When you find yourself struggling to put a rule into words, stop. Just show 2 or 3 examples of what good looks like, and let the model catch on. So examples take their place in the prompt, teaching by demonstration. Our instruction is getting genuinely powerful now, but there's still the question of what the answer should actually look like, so let's specify its shape. Part 6, specify the format. So far we've shaped what the model says. Now let's shape how it's delivered, because a correct answer in the wrong shape can still be useless to you. Tell the model the form you want, not just the content. Answer in 3 short bullet points. Give me a table with these columns. Keep it under 100 words. Write it at a level a 12-year-old could follow. Use no technical jargon. Every one of these is a constraint on the shape of the output, and models follow them remarkably well when you actually state them. This matters most when the answer is going somewhere specific. If it's going into an email, ask for the right length and tone. If it's feeding a spreadsheet, ask for a clean table or a structured format. If a person is skimming it on a phone, ask for tight bullets, not dense paragraphs. Matching the format to the destination is the difference between an answer you can use immediately and one you have to reformat by hand. One small caution: don't pile on so many formatting rules that they start to fight each other or crowd out the actual task. A handful of clear constraints works beautifully. A dozen fussy ones, and the model starts quietly dropping some to satisfy others. Think of format as seasoning, not the meal. So format snaps into place. The model now knows its role, its task, your context, your examples, and the exact shape to deliver. There's just one ingredient left, and it might be the most powerful one of all. Part 7, let it think. There's one short phrase that, added to the right prompt, can dramatically improve the quality of an answer. The phrase is simply, think step by step. And to understand why something so small works so well, we go back one more time to how the model actually operates. Remember, the model generates its answer one word at a time, and each new word is shaped by all the words before it. So if you force it to blurt out a final answer immediately, it has no room to work. But if you ask it to reason out loud first, to lay out the steps before the conclusion, then each of those reasoning words becomes part of the context for the next one. It's not just showing its work. The act of writing the steps is literally how it does the thinking. You're giving it a scratch pad. This is why, on anything involving logic, math, or multiple steps, a model that answers instantly often gets it wrong, while the very same model asked to think step by step gets it right. Nothing about the model changed. You just gave it room to reason before it committed to an answer. For tricky problems, those 4 words can be the difference between a confident mistake and a correct solution. Here's the classic case. Ask a model quickly: a bat and a ball cost $1.10 together. The bat costs $1 more than the ball. How much is the ball? Rushed models often blurt out 10 cents, which feels right and is wrong. But ask that same model to think it through step by step, and it sets up the little bit of arithmetic, works it out, and lands on the correct answer. 5 cents. The ability was always there. It just needed room to use it. There's a small trade-off, to be fair. Reasoning out loud means more words, which means a slightly slower and longer answer. For a simple question, you don't need it. But for anything hard where being right actually matters, it is almost always worth it. When in doubt, let it think. And with that, the last ingredient clicks into place. Role, task, context, examples, format, and room to reason. Let's step back and look at what we've built. Part 8, the mindset. All the techniques so far are about writing a single, strong prompt. But the biggest shift for most beginners isn't a technique at all. It's a change in mindset, and it's this: prompting is a conversation, not a one-shot lottery. Your first prompt is a draft, not a final answer. The real skill is in what comes next. The answer's too formal, so you say, make it warmer. It missed the point, so you clarify and try again. It's close, so you say, keep the second half, redo the first. Each turn steers the model closer to what you actually wanted. The people who get the most out of AI aren't the ones who write one perfect prompt. They're the ones who refine quickly and without frustration over a few turns. And here's a mindset tip that makes iterating painless. You don't have to get everything into the first message. It's often faster to start simple, see what comes back, and then steer. Treat that first answer as information, a clue about how the model read you, and adjust from there. A quick conversation of 3 prompts almost always beats an hour spent agonizing over one supposedly perfect one. And to speed you along, here are the 3 most common beginner mistakes so you can skip them. The first is being polite but vague, adding please and thank you while forgetting to actually say what you want. Courtesy is fine, but it isn't clarity. The model needs specifics, not manners. The second mistake is overloading a single prompt, cramming 10 different requests into one giant paragraph until the model, spread too thin, does all of them badly. Break big asks into steps, one clear job at a time, and the third is giving contradictory instructions. Asking for a detailed summary that's also very short. When you pull the model in 2 directions at once, it can't satisfy both, so it picks one seemingly at random. Read your prompt back and make sure it isn't fighting itself. Get the mindset right, iterate calmly, avoid those 3 traps, and the techniques we covered become second nature. Now, let's put the whole picture together. So here it is, the complete anatomy of a great prompt. A role telling the model who to be, a specific task, the single biggest lever, the context of your actual situation, examples to teach by showing, a format for the shape you need, and room to think for anything hard. Stack these together and compare the result to that sad little write about dogs we started with. Same model, a completely different class of answer, that is prompt engineering. And notice how this connects to everything else on this channel. This skill is the steering wheel for all of it. It's how you guide the raw model from my video on how LLMs work. It's the instructions we gave an agent in my video on agentic systems. It's even the prompt that our RAG system assembles automatically. Learn to prompt well, and you've learned to steer every AI system you'll ever touch. But I want to leave you with a thought that points to where we go next. Everything today was about crafting a single great message. But what happens when the AI has to juggle many things at once? A long conversation, a pile of documents, memories from last week, the results of tools it just used. Choosing what the model should see out of all of that at every step is a bigger and deeper discipline. It's called context engineering, and it's exactly where this channel is headed next. Because here's the real takeaway. You do not need to be a programmer to get dramatically more out of AI. You just need to learn how to ask. So go try one of these techniques on your very next prompt. I promise you'll feel the difference. If this made prompting click for you, give the video a like, it genuinely helps. And subscribe so you don't miss the context engineering video coming next, because we are building AI up from the ground, one blueprint at a time. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.